Maryland Terrapins pulled off a magical win yesterday, upsetting number 6 Michigan State. Gravis Vasquez and the Terps trying to do it again, and they'll go up against Jeremy Pargo and the Gonzaga Bulldogs. The Zags, the Terps, it's coming your way next. Another gorgeous day at the Epcot Center, but we're inside the Milk House, Disney's Wide World of Sports complex in Lake Buena Vista. It's the Old Spice Classic, part of Feast Week, presented by Lowe's, as Maryland will take on number 10 Gonzaga. Take a look at our brackets. A thriller earlier today. Georgetown with an 8-point lead with 10 to go, but Tennessee wins. They await the winner of this one between the Zags and the Terps. All right, folks, thanks for joining us. John Shambi alongside Fran Fraschilla. Well, I think a lot of people thought this matchup was going to be Michigan State and Gonzaga. Great win for Gary Williams and his team right now, riding a real wave of confidence.
Well, they got the first punch in yesterday with the bully on the block, number 6 Michigan State. They really controlled the tempo on both ends of the floor. I think Tom Izzo even said his team was outworked and out-hustled. Maryland needs to come back with the same type of performance today.
One thing we'll see tonight, great guard play both sides. As we check out our star watch for the Maryland Terrapins, they got good backcourt play yesterday from everyone.
Well, Gravis Vasquez can do a little bit of everything, from score it to setting up his teammates. But when you talk about heart and soul of a team, Jeremy Pargo for the Zags, he not only gives up his offense this year to get his teammates involved, but he can still get the big basket.
Lineups for the Terps: Hayes and Vasquez in the backcourt, Cliff Tucker, Landon Milbourne, Braxton Dupree up front. And from Mark Few, Jeremy Pargo joined by Matt Bolden, Micah Downs, Austin Day, and Josh Heitfeld. A lot of depth for Gonzaga. And tonight's broadcast is available in sparkling high definition on ESPN HD. Ready to go here at the Milk House. Coach Mark Few, his 10th year, won 20 games every single season. He's been the head man for the Zags. And there he is, Gary Williams, career win number 401 last night at Maryland. Terps win the tip, Maryland basketball.
Key now for Gonzaga is make sure they pressure the ball, try to keep Maryland from running that crisp offense.
Good look by Vasquez, but Braxton Dupree couldn't convert. And here come the Zags. Day is a tough guard because of that. 6'10", uses the ball fake and puts it on the floor.
How about this, John? The Zags have 5 guys on the floor right now that can all get you 20 points. There's not a weakness offensively in that starting lineup.
With Tucker handling and gives off to Landon Milbourne. And now Hayes on the baseline over Heitfeld. We're tied at 2.
One of the things you want to do against Gonzaga on the offensive end is see if you can drive them. They oftentimes will have trouble keeping the ball in front of them. That's a big key for them tonight.
Nice move by Bolden. Physical type guard who can get to the rim.
Matt Bolden is one of the underrated players in college basketball. Like Vasquez, John, he does everything well and he plays with a high basketball IQ.
One of the things to keep an eye on, the Terrapins really shot it well from 3 against Michigan State. 9 out of 19 as Vasquez goes to the hoop and uses the glass. Nice move.
Dribble penetration early on. Hayes first, now Vasquez. Gonzaga is going to have to tighten that up.
Bolden with the physical advantage against Hayes, gives out to Pargo. Downs working on Tucker, up and under move wouldn't go, but the tip and a follow.
And Micah Downs sticks his hand up in the air as he runs back with Heitfeld saying, hey, I got that. Put that in, put those 2 in for me.
That was me. Nice look, Vasquez, but off the hands of Dupree. And Bolden leads the Zags.
It's the one Achilles heel for Maryland is Braxton Dupree's got to give him some offense inside.
Let's check in for the first time with the third man of our team, Andy Katz.
Well, thanks, John. And talking to the Gonzaga staff before this game, they said the #1 thing they're going to have to do is match Maryland's scrappy play. They were the scrappiest team, certainly on day one. If they don't do that, if they're not as tough as Maryland, and the rest of all these offensive platitudes we're saying is just window dressing.
Day for three. Heitfeld tips, Downs collects, hangs in the air, and gets it to fall.
Right away, they've gone after Maryland on the offensive glass. Michigan State had 17 offensive rebounds last night, but they only had 11 second change points. So right now, Zag's making Maryland pay on the backboard.
Tip there by Dupree, aggressive on the offensive boards. 8-6 game.
Yeah, Gary Williams would love to get about 10 points and 8 rebounds from guys like Dupree and Gregory and Neal every night. I think he'd be happy with that, John.
See if they try and get Heitfeld involved. Maryland team is undersized. They try to back down, but he traveled.
One of the keys for Maryland, they're not a particularly big team. Tallest starter right now, 6'8". And you see the battle inside, and Micah Downs able to finish inside, get a cheap basket.
Hayes gets into the lane, tosses it up, Day the board.
Yeah, they didn't come away with anything, but they did get into the paint again.
Golden travels. Head man for the Maryland Terps, and what a job he's done. He's got his team very confident right now.
Well, and over 600 wins at places like American University, Boston College, and Ohio State. So Gary Williams, in my mind, heading to the Hall of Fame. 30 years as a head coach plus.
Long three missed by Tucker, and Bolden now. Day hanging, and it rolls home for Austin Day.
Gonzaga right now really punishing Maryland inside, taking advantage of that height differential. Austin Day, 6'10". We know he can shoot it from outside, but good post-up move.
He has almost the feel of a European player, doesn't he?
Well, he does. He's very versatile. You know, once he gets stronger, he's got a long wingspan, very good offensive rebounder.
They get Day on the foul. Zags leading by 4. It's our second semifinal. The winner will meet Tennessee on Sunday.
ESPN's exclusive presentation of college basketball is brought to you by Old Spice.
Old Spice Classic Party Feast Week presented by Lowe's. Number 10 Gonzaga leading here in the semifinals by 4 early on. Gravis Vasquez and the Terps, great work using the bounce.
Well, one of the things that Maryland is really good at is they have terrific guards who can get into the lane. And this is something I really think Gonzaga needs to clean up, to be one of those teams that you seriously consider as a Final Four club, because we know, John, they can put points on the board.
So you think that could be an Achilles heel ultimately for them? Really what we just saw guarding that.
Very much so. Very much so. Because, you know, we love them as a team offensively. But one of the things when you really break down their team in their struggles in the past against high-level competition is, can you stop the dribble?
Bolden using the Day screen. Haven't really gotten Heitfeld involved yet. Downs hits. Micah Downs had a big game against Oklahoma State, 17 and 12. Tucker back the other way, Heitfeld, and they get the goaltend.
I'm not sure, John, I'll tell you.
Well, Sunday night, 2 of the top women's basketball teams hit the court on ESPN. Courtney Paris and the Sooners face the #1 ranked Connecticut Huskies led by Maya Moore. Women's college basketball, part of Feast Week presented by Lowe's. ESPN Sunday night, 8:15 Eastern.
See a little 2-1-2 trap now. What Maryland will do with this press is not necessarily use it to turn the Zags over, but just shorten the game so Gonzaga can't get out in transition.
Day aggressively on the baseline, couldn't spin it home. And they get Heitfeld with the foul. That's his first. I mean, there's an element of the approach as Ira Brown checks back in, or checks in for the first time, I should say, that they're going to try and slow it down the same way they did against Michigan State, right?
Well, you want to keep a team that gets out in the open court like Gonzaga to not play a racehorse game. So Gary Williams uses the press for two reasons: to speed up games when he's got better talent, and to slow down games when he's playing the underdog role. Right now, Gonzaga really doesn't have to run an offense. You see, and I say that in a complimentary way because they know how to play pick and roll basketball, and they all move the ball so well.
Skip pass finding Gray, whose three is off the back iron. Blocked by Ira Brown. He was the one that gave him the lift in the second half yesterday against Oklahoma State.
And if he looks like he's undersized, he is. He's a 6'4" power forward.
Strip and a steal. Downs and Brown. Micah Downs has it slapped away. And a foul. More on Ira Brown. Here's Andy Katz.
Well, I can tell you, John, the players absolutely love Ira Brown. And Ira Brown was telling me last night after their win that he finally feels comfortable at Gonzaga after 2 years, knows the set plays, found his role on this team. And Jeremy Pargo was telling me that an unknown story. He says that Ira Brown can bench press 400-something pounds. He also said that he lied on his back, and he says he weighs 220, Brown 250, and Brown did 5 push-ups. That's how strong he is.
Andy, and of course, he's a guy that had a minor league baseball career as a pitcher. 5 years he pitched in the Kansas City Royals organization. And my guess would be when he pitched, he wasn't that big.
No, he's a big guy now. He had a terrific 2 years at Phoenix College, and we were talking last night, with all the star power that Gonzaga has, Ira Brown is one of the throwbacks to the mid-90s when Gonzaga started to become a national name, a Cinderella story, with a bunch of guys that really were overachieving blue-collar guys. He brings them back to that.
Vasquez drills a three, and Maryland within 2.
Vasquez and Hayes, only juniors, but they provide so much leadership for Gary Williams' club.
Yeah, they each played 35 minutes in the win over Michigan State, combined for 30 points and just 4 turnovers. Heitfeld faces up, uses the window, and gets it to go.
Oh, that was pretty. Now he knows he's got the size advantage on Neal, so he used that little Jack Sikma step back move to create some space.
Bowie with a lightning quick Goodson all over him. Vasquez uses the ball fake and a little bump.
Well, you see, it's been a long trip for Josh Heitfeld. I remember back when he hurt his ankle against UConn in the Maui final. That was supposed to be his breakout year. And of course, he's had a myriad of injuries, the suspension for drug possession in 06-07. But Mark Few very, very hopeful that he can have a big senior year. The NBA scouts have had this guy on their radar for a long time. Watch this little step back move. This is the Sikma move. He steps away from Neal to create space, and then he uses the window very deftly.
He really got attention on the national scene with a big game against North Carolina. I think it was the semifinals of what was then the preseason NIT at Madison Square Garden.
When he outplayed at that point Tyler Hansborough. And Gonzaga came away with a big win over North Carolina. Interesting, John. Gonzaga 8-3 all time against the ACC.
Vasquez with Brown on him. How about that matchup?
Well, good defense.
Mosley into the lane. They get a foul at Hightower with the call. They got Dimitri Goodson on the foul.
One thing we saw last night from Maryland is Michigan State really never took them out of their comfort zone in terms of running that half-court offense. Gonzaga is going to try to pressure a little bit more.
That's too easy.
Yep.
Dave Neal, who had a career-high 17 points yesterday, is just waiting for that one. They going to work on Dino Gregory, foul on the floor.
Officials are going to be very, I think, watchful of when you impede an offensive player's progress this year. And of course, anytime you put two hands on the dribble, it's going to be an automatic foul.
One of the points of emphasis. They wanted that to be absolute. Heitfeld back in. Downs catch and shoot. Vasquez the board. He can score, he can dish it out, and he can rebound. Short on that shot. Downs the board. Golden doesn't have numbers and slows it down. Goodson gets into the paint, tosses it up, and it won't roll home.
Tough shot, but you see Gonzaga right now, sort of a freelance offense. A lot of ball screens, a lot of use of their athletic ability.
Vasquez traveled. Timeout on the court, and the Zags lead by 2.
Take a look at this inbounds play. Watch David Neal. He's got the defense falling asleep. Gets an easy one. Maryland within 2.
No, you're not about to see NASCAR highlights. It's high-octane thrills you can only get on Test Track at Epcot as you put a race car through the rigors of an automotive proving ground. Race up bumpy terrain, zip through hairpin turns, and then speed outside onto 50-degree bank curves at 60 miles an hour. One of the longest, fastest attractions in Disney history. And we're here at the Old Spice Classic, and what a collective resume for the teams in this field.
Well, how about the fact that the Big Ten is now 0-7 in the Old Spice Classic after that Michigan State loss last night. They've never won an Old Spice game. Oh, little 2-1-2 press.
Mosley finally comes away with it. And Vasquez will pull it back out and set it up. Gonzaga by 2. Adrian Bowie handling. He was excellent against Michigan State. 3 3-pointers. Vasquez and Mosley. Heitfeld the board.
And Gary Williams got great performances last night from Bowie and Mosley. David Neal.
He can hit that.
And in fact, that's his strength. His ability to shoot the ball from outside. The Gonzaga coaching staff compares him to the Utah Jazz's Mehmet Okur. He's a good pick and pop guy in the screen and roll.
Bowie kicks out. Neal a deep 3. And a nice tip underneath by Mosley. Sean Mosley, big recruit.
He's shown us that he's willing to do the dirty work. The second all-time leading scorer in the state of Maryland high school basketball. He doesn't play like a scorer. He defends, works hard on the glass.
Golden wide open.
Nice.
Heitfeld thought about going after it, didn't wisely so. And Maryland within a point. Vasquez off to a good start. Fargo draws the contact. He'll go to the line.
Take a look at this, John. They use that 2-1-2 press now. You see the 2 right here. Here's the 1, and there's 2 in the back. This is a very safe press because you have 2 safety men, and you're not supposed to be able to steal the ball that easily. It's really more of a nuisance press, but sloppy play by Gonzaga, and it gives the Terps a chance to go the other way.
Maryland has just brought Jin-Soo Kim into the game. 6'8" freshman from South Korea. Long shot, and Kim and Mosley fight for the rebound.
Well, Jin-Soo Kim has only been practicing with the team since November 4th when he was cleared by the NCAA. The coaches really like him. Players do as well. Very versatile player. Doesn't really know the system yet as the Zags go to the zone, but they really, really like his potential.
Has it taken away by Bolden. Up ahead, Goodson. And he lays it in. And Gary Williams calls timeout. Gonzaga leading it by 4. And a timeout in the Milk House. The BCS rankings with Texas, a road win at Oklahoma State would give Oklahoma a huge boost in their quest for a spot in the BCS championship. It's Saturday Night Football presented by Southwest Airlines, part of Rivalry Week presented by Samsung Mobile. ABC Saturday night, 8 Eastern.
Crazy things happen in the Bedlam series. Texas held their own last night, beating A&M 49-9.
Some pressure by Gonzaga yields a turnover.
The Zags now have used some 2-3 zone and then some full court pressure.
Pargo wide open and buries it.
See, with Pargo and Goodson now, you have two very athletic guards, and they go back now to what looks like a 1-1-3. And this is good, John. Their fastball, their man-to-man defense is not good enough to shut people down night in, night out in terms of the elite level. So playing zone is like having a curveball.
Milborn the miss, but Dupree the follow.
One of the problems with zone is oftentimes you lose rebounding responsibilities.
Bolden has it blocked by Kim. Good job by Bowie using the rim to protect himself.
Sure did. Went right by Day. Of course, anytime you've got Day in transition, you want to go right at him.
Heitfeld, little jump hook off the window. No good, but the follow. And the little guy, Dimitri Goodson, the 5'11" freshman with the putback. And an offensive foul.
I'll tell you what you're seeing from Gonzaga right now, John. You're seeing some toughness and some grit. And that's what they need if they're going to be an elite team on a national level.
Only $400,000 in salary today by the Knicks, who say he refused to play in a game this week against the Pistons. He will not play Saturday against Golden State. Big news from college football. Lane Kiffin will be the new head coach at Tennessee. Remember, fired by the Raiders and Al Davis this year. Now he takes over for Phil Fulmer and the Vols.
And the Vols will be in our championship game on Sunday here from the Milk House. And they await the winner of this one between the Zags and the Terps. Austin Day, nice move, used his size and able to drop it down.
He is a tough matchup because he's so versatile. You have to respect the deep ball, and then he's got the ability to put it on the floor. And he was very patient on that last post move.
Kim has it blocked, and an offensive foul call. Here at the Milk House, Disney's Wide World of Sports complex in Lake Buena Vista, number 10 Gonzaga taking on Maryland in the Old Spice Classic semifinal action. John Shambi, Fran Fraschilla, and Andy Katz with you. Thanks for joining us on this Thanksgiving weekend.
I think the win over Michigan State last night for Maryland was a great wake-up call for the Gonzaga Zags because they have come out with a lot of energy and fire on both ends of the floor.
Fargo, high arcing shot. Good rebound there. And Tucker ahead to Milborn for 2. And they get the carry. Goodson palmed the ball. There's a look at the bracket for the 76 Classic out there in Anaheim as Wake Forest just did get past UTEP.
Jeff Teague, the sophomore guard from Indianapolis, one of the best young guards in America. People don't really talk that much about him, but he had 29 today. And Johnson, the sophomore, Teague, a whole bevy of freshman bigs.
Nice move, Vasquez. He's got 9. Tell you what, That other semifinal matchup is a real good one as well. Talking about Baylor and Arizona State.
Absolutely. James Harden is a terrific player, not just a great scorer, but I'll tell you what, this guy can do a little bit of everything. Vasquez can get to the rim, and he's 6'6", you got to remember that. He can score inside. Watch how he uses the window. And then he's got that ability. Put it on the floor, spin, pull up, hits it. Don't forget that deep range as well. A lot of international experience for Rivas Vasquez. Plays for Venezuelan national team.
Vasquez, nice look. Finds a cutting Tucker, and the Terps are within a point.
It's a guy that was in the top 10 in the ACC in 6 different statistical categories. So we talk about versatility. He puts his money where his mouth is.
They got a foul down low on Cliff Tucker.
One of the things we've talked about, right, John? Guard the dribble. If you allow that dribble to get into the lane, it's going to break your defense down. And again, see, Jeremy Pargo has got to be much tougher than that in terms of being able to square Vasquez off and keep him from getting into the paint.
Well, Vasquez been big so far, averaging through their first 4 games 21 points a game.
You know, you get the feeling that Gonzaga's been in a really good flow offensively, and yet they're only up 1. That first round yesterday was like an NCAA regional, and today that Tennessee-Gonzaga game had the feel of a Sweet 16 game. The intensity was just unbelievable.
Great crowd. Georgetown and Tennessee traveled a lot of people. And there was a lot of energy in this building.
I think Tennessee by mid-January is going to be in the top 5, 6, 7 teams in the country. They're very athletic and deep.
Tucker too long. Good rebound by Dupree.
But the one thing Gary Williams will get from this team most nights is a great effort. The guard play is solid. Hayes and Vasquez are 2 of the better combos in the country. And then when you look at guys like Dupree and Milborn and Bowie,
Dupree short. That was the first free throw attempt of the game for the Terps. Yeah, the guard play will carry them. What will they get up front? I'm sure that is one of the questions Gary Williams is looking to get answered. Gray, shot contested by Hayes. And a rebound by Dupree.
And that's exactly why he shouldn't have shot that ball. Stephen Gray, a very, very good open shooter, but that was good defense.
Maryland within 3. Under 5 to go here in Lake Buena Vista. The Old Spice Classic. John Shelby, Fran Fraschilla, Andy Katz with you.
See, Hayes and Vasquez, they're not a point, they're not 2s, they're guards. They both can play with the ball.
That was way off by Hayes. Gray the board, and here come the Zags. In and out for Pargo.
Right now, the Zags living and dying with the jump shot. And they really don't have a, well, they've got Heitfeld in there where they can play through, but Josh Heitfeld, not really your prototypical low post scorer.
Vasquez pulls up, balance, and downs the rebound.
See, Maryland doesn't have a place to go inside. Gonzaga does, but they're not taking advantage of it.
Heitfeld did not see Vasquez step in. And now Hayes, ball fake, and 2 is short. And a timeout called by Mark Few. 3:31 to go, first half. As Gonzaga leads this one by 3. What's your impressions of what you've seen so far, Coach Fran?
I think the thing Mark Few is saying right now is, look, we don't mind playing free and loose offensively, but if we miss 4 or 5 jump shots in a row, let's go inside and let's get an easy basket or get ourselves to the foul line.
Folks, Sunday night, 2 of the top women's basketball teams in the country hit the court on ESPN. Oklahoma goes up against UConn. Courtney Paris and Maya Moore. Women's college basketball, part of Feast Week, presented by Lowe's. ESPN Sunday night, 8:15 Eastern. Mark Few named the Zags head coach after the run to the Final 8 in 1999, and that meant that Dan Munson would take over at Minnesota.
Mark Few is coaching his 300th game today for the Zags, one of the winningest coaches in college basketball. I mentioned yesterday what a great job he does with Coaches versus Cancer. He and his wife Marcy have raised over $3 million for the cause, and ironically Gary Williams is the president this year of Coaches versus Cancer. Little sideline pressure by Maryland. They're one of the few teams in the country that will press on the sideline. They almost come up with a steal.
Let's see what the Zags do with numbers. And a bump on the baseline. 30-27 Gonzaga, 3:24 to go, first half. All right, Ryan, thanks very much. And Purdue, a good-looking team, a young team, but a group with experience.
Well, Etwan Moore, Robbie Hummel, we watched them last year play against Clemson in the Big Ten ACC Challenge. The thing that would impress me was how much command of his team Matt Painter has. He has got a great coach's voice for practice. When he talks, everybody listens, and he is one of the bright young coaches in college basketball.
That team plays with a lot of energy. Matt Painter, Bruce Weber, Chris Lowry group.
You know, when you watch guys coach, go to practice, all I need is 10 minutes of any part of a coach's practice, and I can tell what they believe in. And when you watch Purdue practice, you know they believe in toughness, defense, and taking care of the basketball.
I think one of the things that's fun as well is to watch how the kids react to the coach. And the point on Matt Painter is a good one. Watching that team practice, the kids are locked in on him. There is no, hey, listen, hey, pay attention. They're listening.
That's right.
Vasquez on the baseline, aggressive to the rim, and he's fouled.
Take it. It's interesting, John, I didn't mean to interrupt, but they've got now 22 points in the paint, Maryland, with a chance to get a couple more. And they don't have a low post presence that you throw it into. So how do they get points in the paint? They have used the dribble today to get inside of that Zags defense. And again, something that Mark Few will address throughout the course of the year.
Day back in. Brown sits with his second foul. Gravis Vasquez with 10 points. He was an Ironman last year, averaged about 37 minutes a game, so he did not get a lot of rest.
There's a little 55 press, the 1-2-1-1. It's a one trap and done press, but you have to convert in transition.
Look at Day, the body control, and the big fella sinks that floater.
And the problem when you press full court is you spread the court out. And when you have as many offensive weapons as Gonzaga has, once you get past the first line, you're giving guys like Day the opportunity to make athletic plays.
And there's a block. It'll stay Maryland basketball.
Now watch how they get through this press. Here's Austin Day. They get the ball in bounds. They've already broken the press. So now there's an open court situation, and that allows Day to use that athletic ability to get to the rim.
Vasquez trying to leave it for Milborn, turnover, and it'll go over to Gonzaga.
If you look in the dictionary under the word mercurial, you'll see Gravis Vasquez, because he can be hot, he can be cold, he gets frustrated with his teammates, but he's a winner. And so you live with some of the mistakes, the 4 turnovers a game that he averages.
Closing it on 2 minutes to go, first half. A good one here at the Milk House. Winner gets Tennessee on Sunday. Nice move, Pargo with the left hand.
One of the things you like to watch when you watch guys that can play, especially guys that can get to the rim, is can they use both hands? And that was a perfect example right there by Jeremy Pargo.
Little miscommunication there as Mosley was going one way, the pass went the other, a turnover, and that is number 9, Gary Williams' team.
Gonzaga did a good job right here on the perimeter of switching all the ball screens. And you see now Day out there guarding Hayes, and just a sloppy play. Now credit Gonzaga, John, because Maryland's only got 1 3-point shot tonight made. They made 9 last night.
Micah Downs having himself a good first half, a little bit of everything from him.
When you think about Gonzaga, you can say that about Pargo, Downs, Bolden, a little bit of a Day, a little bit of everything. These guys are a versatile offensive team. I think outside of North Carolina, this is the best offensive team in the country in terms of weapons.
Yeah, just so many different guys can get you. That's a strong statement.
Well, you know what? It's got to be done on the defensive end for them to be a team that's going to be thought of as a legitimate contender to win the whole thing. I don't think they're there on the defensive end yet. But offensively, they know how to play basketball.
Downs wisely slowed it down. Now Bolden with Mosley on him. Step in, Milborn the steal. And he'll go at Day. Tries to block it. Can't, but a tip won't go. Day the rebound. Heitfeld was down low looking for a lob. Bolden's trying to use the screen. Now Pargo. Neal gets a piece, deflects to Vasquez. Good defense there.
That ball was in the air too long.
Milborn has it, blocked by Day. Pargo. Kick out. Hanging in the air, and Day hits.
How about that versatility? You got 4 guys on the floor right now for Gonzaga that can knock down the 3 and also put the ball on the floor. And by the way,
lead of the game for the Zags.
Austin Day, a very underrated shot blocker as well. Little zone now by the Zags. This will take away dribble penetration.
Neal jump hook, no good. Bolden at the buzzer. Would have counted. Jeremy Pargo and Gravis Vasquez going back and forth, but Gonzaga 38-29. They lead at the break, and it's the Zags' largest lead of the half. Let's go to Andy Katz, who's with Mark Few.
Mark, how'd you think of the tempo?
Tempo is where we want to play. We just need to slow down. We don't need that many foot faults and carries and things like that. I mean, that's how we want to play, and I think that's how Maryland wants to play. If we just slow down just a little bit, take a little bit better care of the ball, and then obviously we got to guard their flex action. We didn't have much time to go over it today, and they're hurting us with it.
Early in the first half, Josh very active. How much more effective can he be in the second half?
Well, we just need to be a little bit more dedicated getting him the ball, but as you saw right there at the end, it doesn't, you know, the context of it needs to be right. We don't need to force it in there, which we did a couple times. And then, you know, Josh needs to make a good, strong move when we do throw it in there.
All right, good luck in the second half, Mark.
Thanks.
Andy at the break, 38-29. Gonzaga leads. We head back to the studio. Ryan Burr, Tom Brennan, Doug Gottlieb in the UPS Halftime Report.
All right, thank you very much. A 9-point game from Orlando. Zags on top 38-29. Welcome into the UPS Halftime Report. Ryan Burr, the coach Tom Brennan, and Doug Gottlieb. And guys, we came into this one talking about Maryland. Can they do it back-to-back nights? Upsetting Michigan State yesterday against Gonzaga in the game, down 9. What do you think?
Well, they are in the game. They are down 9, but the fact of the matter is that I think they're running out of gas a little bit. That's the way it appears to me. Last night, for example, they had 9 threes. Tonight, they only have 1 so far. And I just think they're just kind of getting tired. They've expended a lot of energy in the win last night, and Gonzaga's getting away from them.
Self-destructed again at the end of the first half. Gravis Vasquez with a pass to no one, and then Eric Hayes turns the basketball over. Then they get a layup blocked. I mean, Maryland was in this game in a 1-2 point fashion until those turnovers. But think about this, guys. Maryland has been to a Final Four, won a national championship, but you look out on that floor, I think Fran Fraschilla points it out accurately how versatile some of these Gonzaga players. Did you ever think you'd be at the time when Gonzaga has better overall talent than Maryland? That's really a change in college basketball.
And credit to Mark Few for sure. Game of the day so far would be Purdue and Oklahoma, two ranked teams going.
The Old Spice Classic semifinal. Old Spice Classic, part of Feast Week, presented by Lowe's. Gonzaga by 9. John Shambi alongside Fran Fraschilla, and the Zags used a little burst there right at the end to stretch their largest lead of the night.
They got so many guys that can score. That's not difficult to understand. I think that's Maryland's concern now is who do you stop? And when you talk about Gonzaga, all 5 starters can light it up, and they've got some people off the bench that can come in. Michael Downs obviously has been terrific in this tournament. Austin Day, he's got 10 points in the first half because of his versatility. And then Jeremy Pargo has become a really nice setup point guard. Josh Heitfeld stretches your defense as well. Pargo obviously gets all the way to the rim, so that's the dilemma for Gary Williams right now.
So the winner of this one will meet Tennessee in the championship game on Sunday night.
If you're Maryland right now, John, you got to be concerned that you have spent so much physical and emotional energy from the win over Michigan State that you got to regroup right now.
Take a look at the stat sheet. Vasquez, their leading scorer, and leading them in scoring at the break. And Austin Day, good first half.
Nobody else really for Maryland able to give Gary Williams that punch. Eric Hayes only 2 points in that first half.
They got Matt Bolden, by the way, with an offensive foul. It's his first. And down low, nice move, Landon Milbourne, whose dad, Andre Foreman, is the all-time leading scorer in Division III men's basketball history at Salisbury State. Nice move by Heitfeld. And 9 for the big fella.
And Josh Heitfeld's not going to overpower you in terms of taking you to the rim, but he has a good enough touch that he's able to step away and create that space we talked about. And I think that was a point of emphasis at halftime. Make sure we run some offense through the big guy before we settle for those open threes.
That one went through the hands of Milbourne. And 10 turnovers on the Terps.
Milbourne is an interesting guy, John, because he's a small forward who's had to play inside this season for Gary Williams.
Let's go over to Andy Katz, who has more on Gary Williams.
Well, Fran, clearly you work for Gary, because what you just said a moment ago is exactly what Gary Williams said happened in the halftime locker room. He's very concerned that the emotion of that victory over Michigan State is carrying over to this game. He said it's very hard for players like this that hadn't won a game like this group of players, to then get up for another top 10 team.
You know, Tom Brennan made that point at halftime, and if you've coached, you understand exactly that. You spend so much time getting ready for Michigan State that you want to make sure after you have a great win that you come back with the same energy. But that's what I like about Gonzaga. We talked about this at the end of the first half, John. You always can tell what a coach says to his team at halftime because of how they come out and execute. They've gone right inside to Heitfeld to get him established.
Dupree couldn't get it to go. Zags the other way, trying to stretch the lead. And Bolden had no place to go, trying to dump it off to Heitfeld, and it went out of bounds. Take a look at that last move by the big guy.
And we've seen him hit the three, and we watch him now step away. This is great footwork. He'll step towards the rim, little jump hook, uses that shoulder to shield his shot. So between the three, the Sigma move away from the basket, and now the power move, jump hook, we've seen a lot of versatility from Josh Heitfeld.
Milbourne undersized, working against Day, goes to the left hand. And down low, Tucker couldn't get it to go, but Day couldn't collect it, out of bounds, and it'll be Maryland basketball.
Austin Day is a young Colt still. One of the things that he'll really improve upon is his strength. It's one of the things keeping him from being just a great player. He's got a lot of potential, obviously.
Look at Hayes down underneath, and he gets the putback.
They need some scrappy baskets, John.
Oh! Josh Heitfeld.
That's the Josh Heitfeld that Mark Few has been waiting for. A star-crossed 5 years, mainly because of injuries.
I got to tell you, from our vantage point, I thought there was no chance he would catch that.
People underestimate how well he runs the floor. And watch the elevation. You package that with his outside shooting, scoring inside, and this is a guy that can be an X factor for the Zags.
It's the Old Spice Classic Party Feast Week presented by Lowe's. Number 10 Gonzaga leading by 11, and the Zags getting production from the big guy.
Well, you can tell Mark Few had a game plan to go at Maryland inside with Josh Heitfeld because he's got 6 quick minutes. And this is a guy that was expected big things from. Go back to 04-05 and tell you how long he's been around. Names like Earl Knight, J.P. Batista, Ronny Turieff, of course, Adam Morrison. He was a redshirt freshman on that 04-05 team. Injuries, a drug suspension a couple years ago set him back. But a lot of NBA people years ago thought he had lottery pick potential. Again, he's like that European big guy that can play pick and pop basketball. And we've seen his athleticism.
Day able to pull down the rebound, and Pargo will lead the Zags into the front court. Pargo to Day. Day collects and puts it in. And Austin Day with a dozen.
Zags now go to the 2-3 zone. They're going to make Maryland prove it from the perimeter.
Neal with the left hand won't go, and then tries to get the tie up and does. Nice play by the senior captain Dave Neal.
Some of those balls that were dropping last night for Dave Neal, they've been contested tonight by the length of Heitfeld and Austin Day.
Look at Vasquez up and under. Heitfeld wanted to travel, and the Terps within 11. Gravis Vasquez last year averaged 17 points, a little under 6 rebounds, and a little under 7 assists.
Oh, they came and doubled Pargo, but he should be able to make a play out of this.
Under 10 of the shot clock. Pargo, they need to get it off. He does. And a back tap by Heitfeld. Day and Vasquez. Vasquez behind the back. And one.
Vasquez did a terrific job of taking his body to Day.
Gravis Vasquez with a connection to that man on the Gonzaga bench. We'll tell you all about it coming back. Gonzaga leading this one by 9. Gravis Vasquez attacking the hoop and getting the bucket +1. And he's got the connection to Tom Lloyd over on the Gonzaga bench. For more on that, Andy Katz.
That's right. Tommy Lloyd, the Gonzaga assistant, really is almost like their international scout. He really helped them get Ronny Turieff, J.P. Batista. Spends a lot of time in Europe and South America and Canada and all over the place. And it was Tommy that actually placed Gravis Vasquez at Montrose Christian in Maryland with Stu Vetter, and just didn't work out where he would end up going to Gonzaga, ends up staying local at Maryland. It was interesting, at the Wednesday night event here prepping for this tournament, Tommy Lloyd bumped into Vasquez, and of all places, waiting in line to get a picture with Mickey Mouse, and Vasquez then was telling all his Maryland teammates, hey, it was this guy that got me here in the U.S. So you never know where you're going to meet up again, and you also know, as you know, Fran, a lot of times one coach will place a kid in the States and ends up not getting him.
Well, that's true. Montrose Christian. Stu Venner's a great coach. A lot of those kids end up staying in the ACC and the Big East, and Gonzaga a long way. In fact, Tom Lloyd told me, John, that They had to move quickly to get Grievous Vasquez into a high school, and Montrose Christian was the one school that was willing to do all the paperwork and take care of it within a week, and just didn't work out. But that's the way recruiting works.
And also nice to see Mickey Mouse reconnecting people. Deep three, Downs, Pargo right there for the board. Gray's jumper no good, and Heitfeld pulls down the rebound. I don't know whether they got Mosley or Neal. They got Neal.
Well, Heitfeld has had an effect on this second half. This is a team that has 6 players in the early season averaging between 9 and 15 points a game. But I mentioned the X factor Heitfeld because of the size and strength inside.
Hey, watch it up. Here we go.
So the Zags pounding the boards. Stephen Gray hasn't really gotten going at either of the first 2 games. Great shooter. Shot over 45% from 3 last year. Downs off the mark. Neal pulls down the board, tosses ahead to the freshman Mosley.
That's good defense by Downs, keeping Vasquez out of the lane.
Fight for the rebound. Gray comes away with it. Lob. Downs hanging. Brown is underneath, and he's fouled. Well, Saturday night on ABC, Heisman frontrunner Sam Bradford leads number 3 Oklahoma against Big 12 rivals Oklahoma State. Locked in a virtual tie in the BCS rankings with Texas. A road win would be huge for Oklahoma. Give them a great chance for a spot in the BCS championship. Saturday night football presented by Southwest Airlines. Part of Rivalry Week presented by Samsung Mobile. ABC Saturday, 8 Eastern.
Well, there's still a plausible scenario that could end up with Oklahoma and Texas meeting in the national title game. Florida State, if they knock off Florida, and Alabama beats Florida in the SEC title game.
Gonzaga using its height advantage here in the second half and really dominating on the offensive glass. Downs cutting to the hoop, but he traveled, I do believe. And Hightower with the call. It'll go the other way. And that is 13 turnovers on the Zags. So who do you got?
In the national championship
The whole
game?
thing.
I think Oklahoma is the best team in the country right now. Certainly Florida's played very well, but it's hard to tell with how strong the SEC has been all year.
Neal and Pargo fight for the loose ball. Who has it? And it'll be Maryland basketball.
This is a danger zone for the Zags because they've played very well offensively so far. They're shooting over 50%. But Maryland is within a couple of stops and a couple big baskets of being right back in this ball game.
Hayes will try another 3. And a fight for the rebound. Sacre grabs the board. And the foul. Brian Kersey had Dino Gregory.
Now, this is the type of battle that Gonzaga needs. Take a look at all those bodies flying in the paint, and you see Sacre come out of it. And there's a rule where if you swing your elbows excessively and there's no contact, it can be called a violation. It's very rarely called. I'd love to see officials call it more. It would eliminate physical play inside.
Sacre has it blocked, gets it back, and he's fouled. The 7-foot sophomore from British Columbia doing the tough work down low.
This is only his second ball game. He was injured in the summer, surgery in October, so he gives Mark Few another big body inside. He's not developed offensively yet, John, but you see the great size and strength.
You got Dino Gregory on the foul. That's his 4th. 14 fouls on Maryland, 2 on Gonzaga.
As you think of Gonzaga through the course of the long season, guys like Ira Brown and Sacre, they're going to be second-level players, but they give you some toughness and grit.
Hayes pushing, and he's fouled. So Eric Hayes will go to the line. And a rare free throw opportunity for the Terps. Sacre charged with his second. 10-point advantage for Gonzaga. Winner of this one meets Tennessee in the championship game here at the Milk House on Sunday night.
Now, this game is a long way from over, but once Georgetown lost, the buzz here at the Milk House was a potential matchup with the Terps. Hoyas and the Terps have not met in the regular season since '94, and then I think it was 79-80 before that. A hotly contested rivalry.
That's 2 times since 79-80, the one NCAA tournament battle.
You think about Lefty Drizel and John Thompson and their rivalry that they had. Of course, our own Lenny Elmore here this week played on some of those Maryland teams that clocked the Hoyas before they got their program rolling.
Sacre the follow and the flush.
You can see the Gonzaga bench right now very excited for guys like Ira Brown last night, Robert Sacre tonight.
Day blocks it. Bolden has it. Up ahead to Gray. And the lead is a dozen.
I mentioned Austin Day. One of the underrated things about him, he's not a great defender yet, but he is a terrific shot blocker.
And a timeout called by Gary Williams.
Well, the length of Austin Day comes into play here as they get out in transition. But you see Sacre doing a lot of dirty work. Physical play. Of course, his dad played in the NFL. Greg LaFleur, tight end for the New Orleans Saints.
Well, so there's the possibility of that matchup between Georgetown and Maryland. Andy Katz, it's been a rare occurrence that those teams have gotten together.
Unbelievably rare here, obviously, in the last 20 years. As you guys mentioned, the last regular season meeting in 1994. Last time they met overall was in the 2001 Sweet 16 in Anaheim. And there's basically an issue of where you would play this game, because Maryland considers the Verizon Center, the Georgetown home court, even though you could look at that as more of a neutral court in Washington, D.C. Obviously, the Comcast Arena in College Park is Maryland's home court. When I spoke with Georgetown officials earlier today, if this were to occur, they told me it has never been discussed in the last couple of years about setting up any kind of neutral court or home-and-home series with Maryland. So if this game happens on Sunday, it will be highly anticipated in the Washington, D.C., Baltimore, Maryland area as one of the games that they've all wanted to see for years and years between, by far, the two most recognizable programs in the area.
Well, in the next home game, really, should go to Maryland, because Maryland beat Georgetown in overtime in 1994 at the old Cap Center. But a lot of stubbornness, I can tell you that.
Oh, it's a home game from '94, huh, Coach?
You know, you think back to the old days, couldn't find 2 more stubborn coaches than Lefty Drizel and John Thompson. So 2 guys that know how to defend their programs. But the missed opportunities through the years, when you think of all the great Georgetown and Maryland teams, that might be fun on Sunday.
Gonzaga by 12. Dimitri Goodson, the freshman, handling. He could end up being a big factor for them. I know last year they were forced to play Pargo a lot of minutes. Shot clock expiring. Day gets it off. And it goes. The grit, the determination. Andy Katz talked about the need for toughness. That's what the Zags said before the game, and they've shown it at least so far. Look at the work down low. Stephen Gray and the foul. He'll shoot when we come back. Sparkling high definition on ESPN HD here at the Milk House Old Spice Classic, part of Feast Week, presented by Lowe's. Gonzaga leading by 14, and the winner meets Tennessee Sunday 7:30 ESPN 2. And standing by with the Tennessee head coach is Andy Katz.
Well, thanks, John. We're not into projecting here. The election is over, so we're not going to call this game at all yet. But looking ahead here, Bruce, you're scouting both teams, so let's take Gonzaga because they're leading. What kind of problems do the Zags propose for you?
Well, their size. I mean, they really do a great job inside. Heifeld looks like he's getting back into form. And they've got great schemes. They can do things inside out. And Day's a really tough matchup. If it was Gonzaga, the Tyler Smith-Day matchup would be exciting. The advantage for Gonzaga, they're getting to play against a Maryland team that I'm in the Gary Williams family with Dr. Tom Davis, and so the pressure and some of the things that they like to do. We played Gonzaga in Seattle last year, so I think both teams are fairly familiar with one another.
The Gonzaga staff told me that they really liked the way Maryland was scrappy coming in, but they had to match that scrappiness. How much have you seen that from the Zags here so far this game?
Yeah, they've really picked it up physically. I don't think there's any question. It was, one of the things that Mark talked about last year was, getting his guys to continue to be more aggressive, more physical, and they have matched Maryland's intensity, and that's awfully hard to do. So they're formidable. I can see why people think they could be a Final Four team.
Well, let's not give up on the Terps yet. If they were to mount a comeback, what kind of problems does Maryland propose if they are to come back?
Well, I love Vasquez. Wow, is he good. I mean, he's special. I think probably Gary. Where in the coaching box? Gary Williams versus Bruce Pearl. Are you kidding me? It's a no-brainer. My team's going to be 15 points better. That's not to take anything away from Mark.
Who sweats more, though?
Well, he sweats more, but I'm a little more animated.
Back to you, John.
The perspiration breakdown. We'll have that coming up. The 1 through 8 seedings here at the Milk House. Gonzaga leading by 15. Coach Fran, we got a chance to do that game in Seattle last year.
We did, and Tennessee took it to Gonzaga, which if Gonzaga wins this game, it'll be an interesting opportunity to Mark Few to gauge how ready Gonzaga is for an aggressive team like Tennessee.
Neal stepping in. Bolden, though, able to collect it back. And then has it knocked away and a foul. At the Milk House, Disney's Wide World of Sports Complex, Lake Buena Vista. And number 10, Gonzaga taking on Maryland in the Old Spice Classic, part of Feast Week presented by Lowe's. John Shambi, Fran Fraschilla, and Andy Katz. And there are the brackets. Tennessee awaits the winner of this one. ESPN2 Sunday night, 7:30 Eastern. And if Maryland comes back or Gonzaga hangs on to win, we got a great final.
Well, the thing both teams have to contend with Tennessee is the fact that they are relentless. And they lost Juwan Smith, Ramar Smith, Chris Lofton from last year's team. But I think this team, John, actually can be better. Not early, but later on in the year. It's a team that Bruce Pearl can go 10 or 11 deep with. And playing some really good freshmen. I think by mid-January they're going to be a top 5 team, certainly at that level.
Tennessee's got a lot of length, and they have guys who are big, long, and can step outside and shoot.
And they never take a play off, which is a credit to their coach.
And there's Neal coming off that career game, the 17 against Michigan State.
One of the things that Gonzaga has done very well tonight that I don't think Michigan State exploited last night was whether it's Pargo posting up or Bolden or the big guys like Sacre and Day and Heifeld. They've really taken advantage of the opportunity to score near the lane tonight. And that only will open up the perimeter game for the Zags.
They got Burney on the foul. Jerome Burney's first. Sacre hits the front end of the 1-and-1. It's 17 fouls on the Terps, 4 on Gonzaga. Day sits.
I'm trying to think. Obviously, North Carolina's got great offensive firepower because they get out and run and they got Hansborough inside. They got some shooting. Connecticut, when they're at full strength with Kemba Walker playing so well and the inside tandem can hurt you inside offensively. But as I think of the best teams in the country on the offensive end, there's not a lot of teams that can put 7 guys, on the floor, obviously 5 at a time, that can score like these guys can.
Bolden aggressively to the rim, and there's another aspect of the offense. You focus so much on Pargo or Day or Heifeld. Well, Bolden putting it on the floor, largest lead for Gonzaga at 18.
Bolden is a guy that averaged 13 points a game last year.
Well, it started for the Zags back that 99 run to the Final 8, but overall their program history, you see the the win totals and the NCAA tournament bids, 11 overall, but it's 10 in a row.
People think of Gonzaga, they think back to the early 80s and John Stockton. And then Dan Fitzgerald really got the program going. He was the guy that hired Mark Few and Billy Greer and Dan Munson. They were the three musketeers. And then when Dan Munson took over for Fitz, Dan left after '99 in the Elite Eight. Mark's taken the reins from Dan, and as we said last night, Mark Few's got one of the best jobs in college basketball.
And Billy Greer now in what, San Diego, correct?
Yep, and he got the Toreros to the second round last year of the NCAA tournament, knocking off UConn.
Maryland's got to start to chip away at the lead. Offensive foul. You had both Gray and Heitfeld trying to establish position, and Brian Kersey had the call.
I don't know how many charges the Zags have taken tonight, but it's been more than a couple. But when you got guys that want to put their body on the line on the defensive end, who are really good offensive players, it's going to make Mark Few feel really good.
All right, let's interrupt this offensive message board for a moment and talk defense, because they beat Oklahoma State, the Zags did, and held them to 37% from the floor. Or I beg your pardon, held them to 45%. No, 37% from the floor, and Maryland's at 35 in this game.
Well, but you know, if you talk about the Final Four, the Elite Eight, I don't think that you would say that Oklahoma State and Maryland right now are that caliber of team. And you're looking at the top 10 teams in the country. You got to ask yourself, can we guard them? Can we keep them out of the lane? Can we contest shots both inside and out? And can we rebound the ball? And that'll be a question that'll be answered with Gonzaga's tough schedule over the next few weeks.
60-44 Gonzaga. They lead it, and look at the job Mark Few's team has done on the defensive end. It's the Old Spice Classic Part of Feast Week presented by Lowe's. Semifinal action, Gonzaga, number 10 team in the country, leading by 16. Winner this one will take on Tennessee. And let's go over to Andy Katz.
The Gonzaga staff has talked throughout the course of the preseason into the non-conference about how much more mature Josh Heitfeld is and how much more of a leader he is. Look right here as he yanks back on Micah Downs, making sure that he doesn't get any kind of unnecessary technical when he questioned a call from official Ed Hightower. That's the kind of visible example. There he is, patting him on the back, making sure that Hightower knows everything's okay, making sure Downs calms down. Those are the kind of mature plays that they're getting from Josh Heitfeld that they maybe didn't get in years past, that's showing how much more of a leader he can be this season for the Zags.
He does have his degree already, working on a master's. We'll see if it's in diplomacy, maybe. Hayes, little leaner, nice shot. Eric Hayes spent a couple of weeks over the course of this past summer out in Portland working with a former Terp, Stephen Blake. And Hayes and Vasquez, I don't think they're going to get talked about a ton in a league that has a Ty Lawson, but you're still talking about one of the better backcourts out there.
Well, they're going to have to carry this Terps team because there's not a lot of inside scoring, but you're right. And Gary Williams has always done a great job with guys like Stephen Blake. Juan Dixon was an afterthought in terms of ACC recruiting. You play for Gary Williams, you're going to improve because he's going to demand high intensity every day in practice.
Downs hangs in the air. Heitfeld with the follow. Nice play. Josh Heitfeld has 9 rebounds to go along with 15 points.
This is the best I've seen Josh Heitfeld play in a couple of years. This is the kind of Josh Heitfeld performance that we were expecting from him 5 years ago.
That was gorgeous from Gravis Vasquez.
How many times have we mentioned that Gravis Vasquez has been able to get into the lane tonight off the dribble?
He just kind of navigates through the paint and the defenders and finds his man, and that time did it very well, dishing off to Bowie. Heitfeld up and under. And 17 for the big guy.
And Matt Bolden is really like having an extra point guard on the floor to go along with Pargo. I mentioned how high his bat, he plays the game at a high IQ level.
Bowie a three. And the rebound there by Bernie. Well, the Terps have had some great players all time. Let's take a look at Fran's all-time team.
Oh,
man.
We went back and forth on Buck Williams and Lenny Elmore. The guys in the truck hung me out to dry here. I originally had Lenny Elmore. I'm going to hear about it. He's here in Orlando.
Now, wait a second. I need to set the record straight. You had?
I had Lenny Elmore
and then
first.
You changed it.
I did, and I wanted to. But let me say this in all seriousness. That's a great team right there. And Lenny and Jap Trimble, Tommy McMillan, they were the key guys for Lefty Drizel leaving Davidson, coming to Maryland, and establishing, in my mind, if you think about it, maybe the greatest team in college basketball history not to play in the NCAA tournament, because that was the era of the one team from, from every conference.
Fran, I'll tell you, I'm going to hear when I do Inside the Polls on ESPNU from my partner, Adrian Branch.
Adrian would have made.
You left out Adrian Branch. He's got a ring with the Lakers.
He would have made the team. He would have been a great. He would have been a great towel waver, Andy.
You're gonna hear from him in Charlotte.
No, there's some great players on that team, and Adrian certainly was one of them. But
Pargo shot clock expiring. Off the glass and good.
Well, that's range, but probably not the way Mark Few would have liked to draw it up.
Yeah, that one rolls home for Adrian Bowie.
I got to tell you, I got to work with Adrian during the season in the studio. I will hear it from him. But it's really time. We hadn't mentioned Lefty Drizel at all during the broadcast, and it was Lefty Drizel who really started the whole Maryland mystique. Starting in the early 70s. Of course, Gary Williams and Joe Harrington, coaching staff here, played for Bud Milliken, but the great coach who played for Mr. Iba. But take a look at this. Shot clock winding down. And I don't think Jeremy Pargo obviously meant to bank this, but we've seen him in the past, John, with that kind of range. I mentioned earlier, he's a guy that put his name in the NBA draft last year, pulled it out on the very last day. And having watched him over 4 years, he's a guy, oh boy.
That is just flat out self-preservation, because we are working the championship game with Len on Sunday.
Len Elmore is the leading rebounder in Maryland history and was a highly recruited player at Powell Memorial High School in New York City. And he really started, as I mentioned, along with Jap Trimble and Tommy McMillan, some others, the whole Maryland mystique that the left-hander created. Of course, Albert King and later Lenny Bias. John Lucas, the #1 pick in the 1996 NBA draft.
Hey, speaking of left-handers, Len's son is a left-handed pitcher at Princeton.
That's right. Yeah. And a pretty good basketball player at Horace Mann High School.
Josh Heitfeld is feeling it. A great game for the big guy. Largest lead at 20, and Heitfeld has 22 and 9 boards to go along with it. He's 9 for 10 from the floor.
The interesting thing about it is they're going to have 3 or 4 or 5 different leading scorers every night during the season. I think the beautiful thing is Jeremy Pargo doesn't have to shoulder the scoring load like he did the last couple of years.
Well, they've gotten offense from all over in this one. Hasn't just been Bolden or Austin Day. Josh Heitfeld. The foot's feeling fine, thanks. 22 points. Now back here in the Milk House, Disney's Wide World of Sports Complex, Lake Buena Vista, Florida. Old Spice Classic Part of Feast Week presented by Lowe's. Number 10 Gonzaga leading by 18. There's Keith Booth. He had a very good career for the Terps.
You talk about all the great players in Maryland history, and you know there's so many guys that you can put on that team. Walt Williams and Keith Booth. How about Stevie Francis, Joe Smith, first pick in the NBA draft.
Steve Francis and Joe Smith, two guys that, in terms of for a single season or a couple of seasons, they were pretty remarkable.
Absolutely. You know, former Baltimore Bullets coach Gene Shue was an All-American at Maryland. I mean, you can go back a long way.
Vasquez the swipe, gives off to Mosley, who lays it in.
You see Jin-Soo Kim back in, the young man from Korea.
Kim commits the foul. Sunday night, two of the top women's basketball teams hit the court on ESPN. Courtney Paris and the Sooners go up against Maya Moore and the Connecticut Huskies. Women's college basketball, part of Feast Week, presented by Lowe's. ESPN Sunday night, 8:15 Eastern. And, you know, there's the chance that the #1 pick in both the WNBA and NBA drafts will be from the University of Oklahoma. Could be Courtney Paris and Blake Griffin.
That's right. And not only that, you know what, UConn, both their men and women, will have something to say when you talk about the two drafts, because there you see Jin-Soo Kim, young man that came over here to South Kent Prep School. He was put over there by the coach Raphael Chilius. He's the first South Korean player to play in college basketball. And as I mentioned earlier, he was not cleared until November 4th, so he's had very little practice time with the Terps, but coaches and players really like his upside, and he was supposed to enroll next year, but Maryland, short of bodies, was able to get him cleared. He's a 6'7" wing player with a good feel for the game.
Bowie finds Neal, uses the ball fake, and finds a cutting Kim.
Right on cue. When you think about it, he doesn't know the language all that well. He doesn't really know his teammates all that well yet, but the Maryland people were telling us yesterday that he's already become a cult hero on the Maryland campus. And you can see he's gotten a pretty good amount of playing time for a guy that's only been part of the program since early part of this month.
So he completes the old-fashioned three-point play. And 2:44 to go. Gonzaga by 14. Toss up ahead. Downs gets the deflect. Day. Ball fake and left-handed layup.
Well, Maryland gambled on that helium pass that they could steal it. Neal wasn't able to come up with it, and that created the easy basket.
Neal's pull up no good. There's Kim hanging, and it's blocked. Day got it. Day being harassed by Neal. Gonzaga shooting 52%, led by Josh Heitfeld, 9 out of 10.
Well, what a break game for a guy that missed the first 11 games last year and then really played the rest of the season with a stress fracture in his foot. He was really never healthy. Surgery afterwards. But this is the Josh Heitfeld that the coaching staff recruited 5 years ago. And what a lift he gives them. What a line today. You talk about all that offensive firepower, John, and then you throw this guy into the mix.
He is our Old Spice player of the game, Josh Heitfeld. I mean, last year with the injuries, he really went backwards. You said he was playing kind of on one foot. Had to have another surgery prior to the start of this season, but finally pain-free. But his numbers went from 15.5 points and 7.5 rebounds to 10, 3, and 4, 9 last year. So from a sophomore to junior year, did not go the way he wanted it to.
And the thing you like is that at the end of his sophomore year, he was suspended because of the drug possession issue, and he stood up like a man. He basically begged his teammates to take him back. He apologized to the coaching staff. Spokane's a small community. It's a great city, but it's a city where everybody knows everybody. And it was an embarrassment to the school and the program. And he, the very rare situation where a Gonzaga player has met with some legal difficulty, and he handled it, I think, with maturity.
Gonzaga here by 17. I beg your pardon, by 17. And looking to hook up with Bruce Pearl and the Tennessee Volunteers Sunday night, our championship game, as Heitfeld gets a great hand.
With the great schedule that Gonzaga plays Sunday night, they have as big a test, in my opinion, as they've had in the last year or two, because Tennessee absolutely took their lunch in Seattle in a game that you and I witnessed. And Tennessee is going to bring the heat Sunday night. Gonzaga is a year older. They've got a healthy Josh Heitfeld. That should be a terrific measuring stick for where the Zags program is at this point in the season.
Neal short, Gray the rebound. Now they play them again later on in the year, so they'll play Tennessee twice now this year. Gonzaga's also going to play Memphis, Arizona, Washington State.
That's a great point. That's what I like about Mark Few, because they could drop Washington. Some schools, Washington has dropped Gonzaga from their schedule, but Washington State's a very, very good club, and Mark Few continues to play Tony Bennett's club.
Bolden hits.
In fact, the Cougars of Wazoo may be one of the underrated teams in the country this year, because they lost 3 really good starters. But Taylor Rochesty's back, and Darren Harmeling. Aaron Baines doesn't have to worry about the Lopez twins or Kevin Love this year. And Tony Bennett can coach.
So here's that non-conference schedule we talked about.
It's pretty good. Now remember, they're going to be very successful in the West Coast Conference. Although San Diego and St. Mary's will give them a run, they can play that kind of schedule knowing that they've got a built-in amount of wins in the West Coast Conference. On the other hand, John, Maryland now, this sets up a great rivalry game Sunday night with the Georgetown Hoyas.
But let me do the loaded question with 36.2 seconds left. I mean, this Gonzaga team, I mean, they're going to finish in the top 3 in any conference in the country, aren't they?
Well, I think they're capable. You take the Big 12 or the ACC, I would think they're the 3rd best team in the ACC. Yes, I think in the Big East, that'd be a little different now, because that's a gauntlet this year. I think they would be one of the top 4 or 5 teams in that league. Offensively, they certainly be one of the 2 best. But the thing for Gonzaga, if you're talking about winning a national championship, which is what the goal is can you defend the North Carolinas and the Connecticut's? I think that's where their program is. On a given night, they play with anybody, and they play smart. They're well coached. They'll have to get far in the tournament on the defensive end.
Well, big night for Josh Heitfeld. 22 points, 9 boards. He goes 9 for 10 from the floor. And the Zags thump Gary Williams and the Maryland Terrapins 81-59, the final score. And there's your championship matchup. 7:30 Eastern on Sunday, ESPN2, Tennessee and Gonzaga. And that same toughness that Mark Few's group said they needed against Maryland, they're certainly going to need that and more on Sunday.
It's a toughness game. There's no question about it. Early in the year, teams are trying to find their rhythm, play the new guys. Role players step up into starring roles. You're not at peak efficiency. You win games in November in these tournaments on mental and physical toughness. So that's why it's going to be a great battle, because Tennessee brings it on every possession, John.
Very, very versatile offensive team for Mark Few, and they got Heitfeld going in this one. Yesterday it was Micah Downs and 5 different guys in double figures, but when you talk about scoring from all over the place, and they have size, no question. And tonight they're able to win this one and set up a finals date with Tennessee. Let's go over to Andy Katz, who's standing by with Mark Few.
Thanks, John. Now, Mark, your assistants were telling me before the game that Maryland was so scrappy that you had to match their scrappiness. How'd you do?
I think we did a good job. I mean, like I said yesterday, Maryland kind of reflects Gary. He's a tough, hard-nosed guy, and I mean, I thought they were extremely opportunistic against Michigan State, and we challenged our guys, and I think we did a nice job. I don't know what the boards ended up, but I thought we did a nice job getting the most of the loose balls.
Well, appreciate it, Mark. Good luck on Sunday. If I can bring in Josh Heitfeld here. Josh, you played Tennessee before last year. How do you match up Sunday night?
You know, we haven't went over them yet. They have some tough guys, they're scrappy. We just have to come out and play like we did today. You know, everyone played really well, and we came out to win, so that's what we're hoping we'll do tomorrow.
Okay, good luck on Sunday.
Thank you.
Let's go back to you, John.
All right, Andy, thanks very much. So Gonzaga wins it 81-59, the final for Fran Fraschilla and our entire ESPN crew. I'm John Shambi. The Zags will meet up with the Vols. That's Sunday, 7:30 Eastern, and that'll be on ESPN2 here from the Old Spice Classic. Let's head back to the studio now, and Ryan Burr.